Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /EntitledPeople, where people really think they can do what they want, when they want. And in today's episode, Karens are getting punchy, guys. Retail workers are telling the craziest stories about their Karen encounters. So yeah, grab a drink, sit back, relax, and seriously, try not to shake your heads too hard in today's episode. Let's dive in. When I was in college, well over 2 decades ago, I worked as an assistant manager in a shoe store in a pretty sketchy area of our city. And seriously, we had some pretty insane rules about catching someone stealing, and what you could and couldn't do about it. It wasn't enough to know that they had the pair of shoes in their bag. You had to watch them put the shoes in the bag, and then kindly ask them to follow you to the back. If they agreed to go with you into the back of the store and wait for police, you were good. Hooray, you caught a thief. But if they ran, you were out of luck. Also, if they said, no, I'd rather not go in the back with you and start walking out the door, you were also out of luck. We had some pretty strict rules since we were again in a sketchy area and some customers wouldn't hesitate to fight us. We often worked one person in the store at a time during the day since it was painfully slow. Sometimes there would be 2 of us during the day. One day, this group of 3 women came in, and very obviously, they were planning on taking shoes and not paying for them. We heard their little plan of distracting us going on. Well, the day this happened, my 4'11" coworker was fed up, and she got a little feisty, and she approaches these women in a kind of upfront way. She says, I know what you're doing. Put those down and get out of here. Well, the 3 women went psycho. One even stepped up and she starts pushing my coworker screaming, you are little. I will punch your little ass. I will cut you. Get away from me. I'm also a small girl too, so that was enough for me to step away from the situation and urge my coworker to do the same. Later, we told the store manager what happened and her response was, you should have kept pressing her and let her punch you. Then you could have called the police. Seriously, next time, let them punch you. To that, I remember thinking, I'm sorry, what? Like, no $75 pair of shoes is worth letting 3 people attack me, no thanks. The following week, I told a clearly physically disabled 12-year-old to get out of the store because I could see he was trying to steal. The kid went to the supermarket next door and he came back brandishing a kitchen knife he had stolen. Thankfully, there were a few people in the store at the time, and this old woman chased him down outside. I was finally allowed to call the police, and I also quit that day. Yeah, I am not surprised OP quit, because being in a place like that and always dealing with customers like that, no, thank you. Like, it also makes it worse when you have a boss that's like, oh, no big deal. If someone steals and gets aggressive, let them hit you in the face. Then you can call the cops. Like, yeah, that is a great idea, boss. Maybe next time someone aggressive comes in and threatens us, you show me how it's done first. You take the hit, so I can properly learn how to do the task. But yeah, if you guys thought that encounter was wild, well, this next OP goes up against a thieving father and son. Listen to this. So to start, I hate thieves. It's because they feel entitled to take things that aren't theirs, and some even think it's right as businesses make a lot of money. So that said, on to the story. I was a cashier at a warehouse grocery store. We did have security guards come and go, but none of them were any kind of deterrent. This one time, we had a new guard. She was a small, 5'2" Hispanic lady, around 50 years old. But she was kind of feisty, so I liked her. Cue the trashy man and the trashy son. I'm dealing with a customer and these 2 are next in line. They have one single candy bar on the belt. That's when I also notice that the young man is standing way too close to the dad's back. And that's when I catch a flash of a bottle of vodka stuffed in the kid's pants. Cue the inward sigh. So I tell the kid maybe he should leave the bottle behind. He says he doesn't know what I'm talking about, and I'm thinking, sure you don't. I then make the initial mistake of calling over my tiny security guard lady about the guy as he makes his way away from my register. She makes a linebacker move, trying to anticipate his move as he just taunts her, jogging around, goading her into chasing him. Mistake number 2 is I leave my register. You see, I sick this sweet security guard lady on him first, not taking into account the fact that she's way smaller than he is. My bad. I didn't want her to get hurt because of me. But rather than put my arm around her shoulders and pull her away from him, what did I do? Well, I walk to the front and I plant myself in front of the exit door. Now, if the guy had wanted to, he could have left out the other door, no problem, but he didn't. And this is where the story gets a bit muddled. In my version of events, this guy rams into me and I grabbed him and held on to him. My ex-union rep, however, says quite clearly on video camera, I out of nowhere lunged at the kid and grabbed him. At this point, I wasn't letting the guy go. Now, that's not because he has the bottle, no, because he was screaming, "I'm a effing hit, that security bitch." Mistake number 3 is I didn't let go. And then, at some point, the bottle comes out. The tiny security lady, who had been by my side the whole time, is now screaming, "Watch out, he's trying to stab you with the bottle." It only vaguely registered that I heard the bottle break. And seconds, it was only a matter of seconds, milliseconds really, that the a-hole got loose from my bear hug and he smokes me in the face with his fist. I had my cell phone in hand to call 911 and it falls out of my hand. My glasses flew off my face somewhere, and I'm a -8 prescription, so I was basically blind at that point. Meanwhile, the dad's there the whole time, screaming how it's my fault I got hit, and how we shouldn't be touching people, and my supervisor screaming at him to get the F out. 2 weeks later, I am indeed fired. I was fired for disobeying company policy. I was told, never try to grab a shoplifter, let security deal with it. So I told the truth, F the kid and his bottle. He would have hurt that tiny security lady, and it would have been all my fault. And I think I'd rather face being fired than have to live with that guilt. I was also willing to press charges. And the thing is, my mom was actually okay with me being fired because she hated that job. Seriously, no good deed goes unpunished, they say. And you know what? Despite OP getting fired for not obeying company policy, what he did was commendable. Like, the guy was getting aggressive and clearly wanted to hurt that security lady, and OP stepped up to the plate that day. And OP does come back with a comment that says, I didn't do it for the bottle. I stupidly did it for the security guard. F chivalry and nobility, right? And this person says, you are hired to do your job, and she's hired to do hers. If she couldn't handle it, that's on her. All for the sake of defending the assets of a company that obviously doesn't give a rat's ass about any of their employees, especially if they hired a tiny little lady unfit or untrained for a job as security. So in short, I worked at a restaurant, and this happened not too long ago. As with any time you deal with customers, you'll get the super entitled ones. This involves a woman who busted my lip open in front of her 2 kids because I asked to ID her and her friend for alcohol. This one lady tried using her ID for both of them. I said that wasn't allowed and that I needed both IDs if either of them was going to drink. They then got attitudes about it, and I start giving them crap once they stand up from the booth, and they began dangling one of their kids, 3 years old, in the air by his arm like he was a rag doll. I couldn't watch that and not say anything. They then continued to scream, telling me that it's not my kid, to mind my own business, and eventually, they end up pushing me into a corner of my section. That's when the raging Karen then walks up to a table and she pushes it against me. She literally pins me in the corner with the table. Before I could react, she reaches over it and she hits me in my face, busting my lip open. Now, I'm shaking at this point because I've never been assaulted before. Right after the lady punched me, the other lady turns to my manager who is trying to get between us. and she says in the calmest voice she was very unprofessional. She deserved it. Hearing that, I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Are you effing serious? That came out of your mouth? Well, the cops were called, and I talked to two of them. They said they were gonna look for the car, and if they can't find it, the case will be sent to a detective, and I do hope they find them. We don't have cameras in or outside of the building, but we did get videos of their faces, as well as their handicap sign number. I hope it's enough. Again, I've never had something like this happen. I'm not confrontational, but when I saw her holding her kid like that, I couldn't stop myself from yelling at her. Yeah, what a horrible situation to be in, and I seriously hope that kid is okay in Karen's care. Because you gotta think, if the mom's doing something like that in public, who knows what goes on at home? And just knowing that she did that makes my blood boil, guys. Like, it does suck that OP was punched for speaking about it. With that said, OP does come back to update, and they say, "So it's been a while since I made the original post. I end up going to court for this, and they end up finding the two women, and the ladies were charged and found guilty of harassment. They were each charged a maximum fine of $300. They weren't present at the time, which I thought meant that they couldn't be charged and would be arrested for failure to show. But the judge passed the verdict anyways and said they have 30 days to pay or there would be a warrant for their arrest. He also said if they wanted to fight it, we would be going to court again in the coming future. But because they weren't there, we didn't know if they were gonna pay the fine or not. We talked to the detectives and he said a few things. Number one, that they were claiming that I was being racist towards them, which I wasn't. I was following the law by requesting ID for alcohol. Number two, that they only hit me because they thought I was gonna hit them first. And seriously, I was literally backed into a corner, so what? And number three, the one that hit me had a long history of other charges. All in all, I was honestly a little disappointed with the outcome because it felt as if they got off easy. I mean, I was attacked at work and I quit my job because I was scared to go back. Regardless, it was over with. But as we were all leaving the courtroom, I saw them both standing at the front desk. They finally show up 40 minutes late. We walked out of the office with the detective. He said that he wanted to walk with us just in case they tried to follow us because apparently they were getting upset that they missed their court hearing and one of them was raging. I just thought, too bad, you knew what time you were supposed to be there. Me and the witnesses and the detective were just kind of baffled. We then said our goodbyes and I head home. About an hour passes and I was sitting in my living room when I got a phone call. It was from the detective. He informed me that after we left the office, they made a threat to me in front of all the people that work there. They said, and I quote, that they were going to go to my old job right now and we will F her up. But here's the thing, they didn't know I quit because of them. The detective then told me that he was pressing another charge, intimidation of a victim, which is a felony. He also mentioned terroristic threats. We're going back to court and I couldn't be more thrilled. It'll have to be a different court, but regardless, they're getting even more charges now. To top it off, they did get arrested at the office. I was upset initially because I felt like they got off easy, but not anymore. I'm getting my justice. And what a satisfying ending to that post. Like the fact that the two couldn't keep it together and they end up tacking on more charges and they dug themselves into a deeper pit of crap was amazing, guys. But yeah, what a wild ride that was, and I'm just glad we got the satisfying conclusion that I'm sure everyone was hoping for. So this happened yesterday. I was at a car wash and it's one of those that you drive through and then park to clean and vacuum. It's got a couple of vacuum hoses on each side of every parking spot. Yesterday, they were fairly slow when I arrived. There were only 4 cars in the lot of 20, including my van. I chose a spot away from everyone else so I could have both sides empty to freely clean and vacuum my van. That said, I had my bag sitting in the passenger seat of my van, which is important for this post. Also, this particular car wash supplies loaner towels for drying and cleaning. I just returned with a couple of towels when a guy pulls up immediately next to my van. Now that was annoying since there was a lot of other places to park, but whatever. So as I was drying my van's rear bumper, I hear someone pulling on my door handles. I immediately perk up, and unsurprisingly, it's the jerk that parked right next to me. So I yelled over to him and I say, "Yeah, I locked the doors. What are you doing?" The guy, being surprised by me, gets so angry that I could see him turning red. He then yells back at me and says, "F you, a-hole," and then he punches my van multiple times, which I'm sure hurt his hand more than my door. The guy then jumps back into his car and he tears out of the parking lot as fast as his beater can go. I just laughed and I flipped him off as he drove away. When I went to look at the other side, I have no idea where he hit my van. There was no mark or dent of any kind, so I just finished cleaning and went back to the store. I'm just glad I locked my doors. And this is why you should always be aware of what's going on. And thank goodness OP locked the doors, because it probably would have gotten a bit crazy, seeing as the guy was so quick to anger and sent his fists flying for no reason. But yeah, like the audacity of that idiot to get mad at OP for not being able to steal from them. Like, why are some people like this, guys? And this person comments, "Too bad you weren't with someone, because you could have pulled a reverse Uno and have your friend steal his car while he was trying to steal your bag." I worked overnight at a 24-hour truck stop restaurant attached to a motel in a small town when I was 19 years old. At the time, there was a massive heat wave going on. Anyways, it was about 3 o'clock on a Wednesday, and the restaurant was full of people that just wanted to take advantage of the air conditioning. Honestly, I didn't care. So in walks the entitled mom with her husband and 2 kids. I seat them at a table and bring them some menus and take their drink order. I give them their drinks and then go around to check on the other tables. I then go back to my line to refill some drinks. And there's a random little kid who's around 3 years old running through my line. I pick the kid up, put him down outside the line, and I tell him he can't be back here. The kid seems to get it and he runs off. I go and drop off the refill and I turn to see the same kid's back in my line. And now he has one of the knives in his hand. It's super dull, but still a knife. So again, I grab the kid, take the knife out of his hand, and I tell him he cannot be back here. I don't want him to get hurt. I start looking for his parent, and I can't remember which table he was from. So I just put the kid down, and I watch which table he went back to. He went back to the entitled mom, and I'm thinking, crap. So not wanting to start anything, I decide to drop it. I move the knives to a top shelf, and I move the box cutter. I then drop some food off at another table and come back to see that the kid's in my line again. This is the 3rd time in like 2 to 3 minutes. Once again, I pick the kid up and take him to the table. I plop him down in the seat and I say, "Here you go, little buddy." I then look at the mom and say, "I'm sorry, but your son keeps wandering into the serving line. It's super dangerous back there, so please make sure he knows he can't do that. I don't want anyone to get hurt." At that, the mom says, "What are you talking about? It's a restaurant. He can go wherever he wants." I tell her I'm okay with him running around, just not back in the serving line. There's a bunch of dirty dishes and knives and plenty of other dangerous things, so please keep him out of there. That's when the woman looks at me and she says, "Are you telling me how to parent?" I respond, "I'm doing no such thing. He simply can't go back there." Karen says, "He can go wherever he wants. Where's your manager?" I respond, "My manager isn't here at the moment, but please," cue the woman screaming at the top of her lungs how she's gonna get me fired, how rude I am, all that stuff. Right about now, the entire restaurant is staring. And that's when I say to Karen, "Listen, you have until the count of 3 to stop yelling at me, or I'm gonna have to ask you to leave." So cue more screaming, something about how I can't treat people this way or something. So I start counting, and I say, 1. And that's when Karen says, "You can't kick us out." I respond, yes I can. I've asked you to leave. If you don't, I will call the police. She then says, well, I'm not leaving. Call the police. Call the cops. That's when I pull out my phone and I dial the personal phone number of one of the cops I knew who happened to be on duty. Karen says, you're not really calling the cops, you effing liar. I just say, I guess you'll see. The cops show up in less than 5 minutes, and again, we're in a very small town. They must have been just down the street. Cop number 1 gets between Karen and I. Cop number 2 pulls me aside to ask what's going on. I tell cop number 2 everything, and he said he would take care of it. Meanwhile, Karen's screaming at the cops how I'm a terrible person, that I was screaming at her first, and that I assaulted her child as I put my hands on her child 3 times. They start trying to move her towards the exit while trying to calm her down. The woman runs around them and she gets back into my face, screaming how I'm gonna regret this, that I'm going to jail for putting my hands on her kid, all that stuff. Cop number 1 gets between us again and gently touches Karen's forearm. I guess in a fit of rage, she turns around and punches him. That's when Cop 2 tackles her to the ground and immediately handcuffs her and drags her out the restaurant while she's screaming at the top of her lungs. I remember someone near me shouting, she hit a cop, you guys, a cop. So yeah, what would have been a talking to in the parking lot led to some prison time. Yeah, I hope she regretted that the moment she calmed down. And to think all she had to do before any cops got involved was to get her kid to sit in a chair and not have the child run around the restaurant. But no, let's escalate things to the point of going to jail. That said, I don't get how some people just let their kids run rampant around restaurants. And in this case, a 3-year-old, for goodness sake. I only wish OP gave a snarky response to Karen when she made that parenting comment. Yes ma'am, well, someone's gotta parent your kid, because clearly you're not doing it. Okay, so buckle up. Last week, there was a small get-together at my friend's house, just 9 to 10 of us close friends. Now, he invited one of his friends, Susan, 28, and she brought along her brother, who's 30 years old, who none of us knew. My wife, 28, was present there too. Susan's brother Dave was being weird with my wife from the get-go. Half the time he was there, he was staring at my wife and trying to touch her whenever he found her alone. It actually got so bad that she even asked me to hold her hand the entire time, because he was making her so uncomfortable. I told her that we could leave if she wanted to, but she said she won't let a creep sabotage her evening. Now this was a bad decision on our part because we should have left earlier. I got a work call in the middle of the party, and my wife told me to take the call, and she assured me that she would be fine with her friend Lisa. Well, when I come back after 5 minutes, I can see Dave trying to hit on my wife and Lisa, and both of them looked very uncomfortable. He had been trying to convince them to get inside the hot tub naked. That's when I confront him, and well, things escalated. He said some colorful words to my wife and Lisa, and implied that my wife was totally leading him on before I came back. He went on saying some nasty things about my wife, so I physically shoved him away from my wife and Lisa. He retaliated by shoving me back, and not proud of this, but we got into a fist fight. It was all adrenaline, fists, and punches flying. The next part happened in the blink of an eye. Out of nowhere, his sister Susan comes in between him and I, trying to shield him, and one of my swinging fists hit her in the face. I of course apologized profusely and even offered to take her to the hospital. I knew this was a huge F-up and I was very ashamed of myself. Susan didn't accept my offer and she didn't accept my apology. Dave ends up taking her to the hospital. The next day, she puts up a story on Instagram saying how I hit her, with a photo of her injury and her face. The story that they're going with is that my wife and Lisa were totally hitting on Dave, and they were about to get naked. And when I found out, I hit Susan out of anger. I've been getting threatening messages on my social media accounts, and someone even found my LinkedIn profile, and they messaged my company asking why they hire women abusers. Lisa and my wife have tried to mitigate this disaster by posting the correct version of the story, but it looks like people have made up their minds that I'm an abusive a-hole. Some people have even messaged my wife telling her to divorce me, and when she said no, they asked why she's supporting somebody who hits women. I contacted Susan through my lawyer, and I said we're gonna sue for defamation and slander, and let's settle this in court, and that other people present at the party are ready to testify against her. Dave and her are now begging us to forgive them as they can't afford lawyer fees, and they're even ready to post on social media that they lied about this whole thing. My wife thinks we should definitely sue them, and Lisa thinks that a court case will really F them over and destroy their lives. I kind of agree with both of them. What should I do? And also to add, since a lot of people think that I shouldn't have gotten into a physical altercation with the guy, he said some nasty things about my wife. The line that put me over the edge were these exact words. He said, "Your wife was begging for my D before you rudely interrupted us." This was when I shoved him away and he threw the first punch, and it escalated from there. Now I know this isn't a justification for the physical fight, but it is what it is. Listen guys, I can't say I'm glad OP hit the guy for talking about his wife, but I do understand why OP started throwing fists. Like a random D-bag stranger whom you've never ever met before starts hitting on your wife all night, doesn't care that she's married, doesn't care about the fact that the husband is there, doesn't get the hint to back off, and to top it all off, starts saying stuff like that. Again, I do understand why OP did what they did. And as for the suing thing, like in my opinion, I would be going scorched earth. OP's got a clear case, and a-holes need to get put in their place and learn hard lessons. That's what I say. And this person comments, "They intentionally endangered your family by creating an internet scandal. Not only will no one believe a redaction, you'll be dealing with this crap for years. Sue them. You won't get much, but your boss will see that the court sided with you, and hopefully your job won't be lost for this. Also, get off social media and start over. New phone numbers, new accounts, all that stuff. They made their choices, and now you have to protect yourself." And this person comments, "Sue them. They deserve nothing less than to be raked over the coals for lying about you and trying to ruin your life. They weren't forced to lie. They weren't forced to post lies. They did so because they thought they could ruin your lives and reputations without repercussion. They're only begging for mercy now that they're in jeopardy. They didn't care when it was they who had the upper hand. He behaved horrendously and she behaved foolishly, and they both lied and they tried to F you over. The guy's a predatory creep and she's an enabler. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You didn't hit her, you tried to hit him and she got in the way. People need to realize if they want to get involved in a fight, they might get hurt. And lastly, this comment says, if they're saying they'll post a retraction, have them do it and then sue them. Guys, let me know your thoughts on this post. Who's going scorched earth on them for trying to ruin a life, and who's taking the high road in this situation? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our slash entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's another entitled people episode, where psycho Karens think they own restaurants and they call 911 for the most ridiculous reasons. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.